Rest is about a guy who takes an experimental drug that suppresses his need to sleep. Imagine not having enough time to do anything you want, whether it's things in your personal life, work goals, anything, taking a drug and having 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to do whatever you want at your peak performance and focus every day. That's where we find our hero, John Barrett, in Rest. He's a guy who's not doing so well. He was an A-type personality when he was younger, headed places, really gonna be the next superstar, hotshot. And after he graduated college, he didn't quite get that job that he wanted, and he got stuck in the doldrums of corporate life. And in that world, he just found he had no time for anything but work, sleep, eat, next morning, rinse and repeat. He comes across an old friend who gives him this opportunity to join this pharmaceutical test group. And the test is on a drug called saracetanol that suppresses a person's need to sleep. John gets on it and his life does a 180. Things just go from, terrible to amazing. Being able to stay up all night, partying, and still make that 6 a.m. conference call. Things are just awesome for him. His life turns around. But within the course of the book, there comes the line of, does this work in society? Does it work for some people, not for others? John comes to find out that the company that is producing this has a bit of a sordid past, and they're hiding it. And his friend, who's also on the drug that brought him into it, is on an older version, and his mind is slipping. So now, even though the drug is perfected within our hero and the main guy, and it could work for others in better society, he's conflicted because he doesn't want to see everything that's wrong with the company get swept under the carpet and thrown away. And also the idea of a 24/7 world. I mean, imagine the resources that the earth would use. Imagine just life expectancy. You're living that much harder, that much faster, and it's not for everyone. The first 5 books are pretty contained within John and his single struggle and his initial interaction with people on the drug, being the person on the drug himself, and nobody else is. But the story was, the concept itself was so relatable and wide-reaching that we're like, okay, what if John, goes through what he's going to go through in the series, but we leave it open-ended, and we've talked about it with Devils Do, and we're excited because they're like, hey, they mentioned it to us. They're like, hey, what if we maybe did another volume? We're like, yes.
The possibilities are literally endless.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there thinking, at the end of the first issue, how's this going to go? Like, are we going to get to see his psychological, his buddy warns him, hey, you may have some psychological side effects and stuff. How's this going to affect him?
Did you notice in the first one, you can actually read it backwards?
No.
Yeah.
What?
So starting from right there, but flip it to the very end. Oops,
Wow.
That in.
So you can read this
But you can read this backwards. That's how it picks up.
Wow.
I don't know,
That's
this is
pretty
one of those
wild.
things where it's kind of like baptism into his new life.
Wow, that's
I don't know
wild,
what that
man.
has to do with anything, but it just made me think.
That's a pretty cool concept, though.
Yeah, that was Mark Powers, the guy that wrote it. In the notes, he's like, okay, everybody stick with me. And even when I first read the ending of book 1, I'm like, how is that going to work, translate anything? But at the end of the series, we do leave it open-ended. The nice thing is we have our plan for the 5 books, and then we have our plan, that little light in the dark that will lead to what the next volume series set of books would be about.
Now, as an actor coming into the writing aspects, how do you relate the acting and the writing? I mean, you have to get into a character's head, but as an actor, you're expressing it through your body, and as a writer, you're expressing it on paper.
Yeah.
What kind of roadblocks did you come, to?
Oh, the first one is I'm a terrible writer. I'm actually not a writer at all, and I wasn't the one who wrote this. Mark Powers, who did Drafted, he was an editor on X-Men for years. He wrote this, Rest, based on a novel. Based on a script by a guy named Michael Sullivan. And myself, my partner and I, Russ, we just took the concept and we sat down, we just spitballed with Mark Powers and Stephen Christie at Devils Do, and we're like, look, this is the story we want to tell. And so as rounds of notes would come and go, and We'd have ideas and thoughts about where we'd want John, or introduction of, this girl Shay, or his buddy Teddy losing his shit. We just all sat around and really collectively found out what the story was, what these characters were going through, what makes them interesting. Not just having a surface level where there are all these events and one leads to the next, but why it all happens and how these decisions made by these characters. So I think being an actor and knowing that you don't, or that I like things to be more character driven than story driven, I think we tried to infuse that. It's like really make this guy John rounded and learning something, and honestly trying to find his way in this new world.
And I really related to the character while I was reading this, because up until about 3 weeks ago, I was doing the grind, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't have any time to get anything done.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of research did you guys do for this? I mean, did you experiment with staying up for a couple of days to see what?
I've never experimented with staying up for days. I just have done it. It wasn't like conscious, hey, I'm going to see how this goes for me. I sleep maybe 4 hours a night. I work on set several, like I say, between like 12 and 15 hours a day. Sometimes 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, sometimes 4. But otherwise, I'm here in my office working, sending out emails, rolling calls, got a bunch of projects and whatnot that we're working on. So for me, it was an obvious choice, subject matter, story, and all that. I could just identify with it. And everybody that I know, everybody that I talk to, and they say, "Oh, you got a comic? What's it about? You got capes and masks and all that." I said, "No, it's about a guy who takes a drug and he doesn't have to sleep anymore." Really? It's just a cool concept. Came out of the mind of this one guy that we linked up with. But research, we found out there are people that haven't slept. Like there's this guy in Thailand. He's a farmer, and he hasn't slept in 40 years. 40 years,
What?
just wide awake, walking around. He is the local alarm clock too for the villagers.
Like, oh, there goes Trang. It's 6 a.m.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
They don't need any like roosters or cocks or anything there. It's like just have train. That was a bad joke, sorry.
No, because another aspect of this that I found to be incredibly fascinating is the government really is working on, like they call them nootropic drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
They're trying to get soldiers who never sleep, soldiers who never get tired. And I'm always wondering what the effects are going to be on a person's psyche without being able to dream. And, I mean, I would assume it's going to affect this guy in a strange way before it gets better.
Absolutely.
And I think it'd be really cool as a movie. Now, are you guys working on a movie version, television?
What the goal for us was honestly make a good book. If it's not a good book with a good character and good story, it's never going to translate to film, to television, to digital content. It's just not going to work. Of course, now that we've hammered out a pretty rad 5 books, we're definitely looking to take it out and do a feature thing with it. So. Which is always funny. I mean, coming from the world of comic books, having my dad take me to comic book shops when I was a little kid, like once a week, I've never wanted to be one of those guys that comes from the Hollywood industry that's just bastardizing and raping what the comic industry is. Like just go in, find everything, rape and pillage, and be like, all right, cool, we're out, and just leave them like crippled and wounded, thinking, well, this is our passion. I mean, it's my passion too. So. I don't know. I'm very careful when people say, "Oh, you did it just to make a movie." No, I did it to make a good book, like make a good book that people are going to talk about and want to know more about. Not just because I'm involved in it, but because it's a good story, good character, great art, and we can all relate to it.